Welcome to our second session in our series on pain and suffering, for lack of a better phrase. I hope you're enjoying the series so far. Today we're talking about feeling pain and kind of casting blame on others, kind of saying, well, it's so-and-so's fault that I am feeling this pain. For those of you following along in your Bibles at home, we will be reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 9, verses 1 through 34. It's almost the whole chapter, but not the entire one. So John 9, 1 through 34. It's Jesus healing a man that was born blind. It's a fairly popular passage. I don't think we need too much background on that, but there are some icebreaker questions to kind of get our minds going. As always, if you have questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave those in the comment section down below. If I see them, I will read them live and we can maybe have some level of interaction. Otherwise, our first icebreaker question is, who is someone you admire because they have overcome a disability? First person that comes to mind is my dearly departed grandfather. My mom's dad had diabetes and because of that, had to have one leg removed above the knee and another leg, and part of his left foot removed. So he was in a wheelchair for the last, I don't know how many years of his life. But something to know about my maternal grandfather is that he holds the record for the longest consecutive time on a school board. He was on the school board in Lincoln Park, Michigan, where my parents grew up, for at least 30 some odd years, which is a huge feat in my mind, but maybe longer. Regardless, even though he was more or less homebound, even though he had a ramp put in, even though he had only one leg and half of a foot and all these things, he still made it to all of these school board meetings. He still had his voice heard. He still advocated for the teachers. He still did all of these incredible things, even amidst essentially living alone while being unable to walk. And I would say that's admirable. His passion for ensuring the students of the school district got a quality education. It's definitely admirable. Anyway, what about you all? Who is someone you admire because they have overcome a disability? Let me know in the comments below. The second question is, what is the worst thing about going to the dentist? Well, for me, getting an appointment, especially amidst the pandemic, my wife and I had dentist appointments. We haven't seen a dentist in over a year, almost 2 years, and now we can't seem to get one because a lot of dentists are not taking on new patients at this time or even seeing patients at this time. But outside of that, I think it's the fact that your teeth are never quite clean. My wife and I brush twice a day, mouthwash twice a day, floss once a day. But even with that, they still go in and they still find all this crap, and it's like, where is this coming from? I don't understand. I take such good care of my mouth, but oh well. That, and you never really seem to be able to brush well enough. Last time I saw a dentist, they said I was brushing too hard on my teeth, that the toothbrush was actually starting to wear away at the enamel on my teeth. It's like, okay, I thought I was scrubbing away all this crap, but nope. Apparently, I'm just wearing away at my teeth too, which I guess just mastering those skills. Anyway, what about you all? What's the worst thing you think about going to the dentist? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, we'll get to the reading for today. Again, John 9, 1 through 34. Listen now for the word of our Lord. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. As long as it is day, we must do the work of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." Having said this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes opened?" they demanded. He replied, "The man they call Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see." "Where is this man?" they asked him. "I don't know," he said. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. "He put mud on my eyes," the man replied, "and I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." But others asked, "How can a sinner do such miraculous signs?" So they were divided. Finally, they turned again to the blind man. "What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened." The man replied, "He is a prophet." The Jews still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that now he can see?" "We know he is our son," the parents answered, "and we know he was born blind. But how he can see now, or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for already the Jews had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Christ would be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said, "He is of age. Ask him." A second time they summoned the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God," they said. "We know this man is a sinner." He replied, "Whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see." Then they asked him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered, "I have told you already, and you will not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" Then they hurled insults at him and said, "You are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from." The man answered, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly man who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." To this they replied, "You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?" And they threw him out. This is the word of our Lord. Thanks be to God. This is one of my favorite stories. I'm not going to lie, I love this story. So, first question in regards to this story. How did the disciples view the blind man? As a religious problem? As a beggar? As a sinner / the result of sin? As a disabled man in need of help? Something else? Definitely as a religious problem. Generally speaking, it was very common belief to say that if someone is born with some kind of disability, they are born blind, they are born deaf, they are born paralyzed, lame, whatever it might be, oh, this is God punishing the parents for their sin, or this is God casting judgment against this child for whatever they may have done, or whatever they will do in the future. Your judgment is already being cast because it is so bad. Or if someone becomes blind, becomes deaf, loses their ability to walk, well, obviously it's their fault. They sinned. This is God punishing them. So now that this blind man is coming forward, seeing for the first time in his life, essentially praising Jesus for what Jesus has done, even amidst it having been done on the Sabbath, a day of rest, and then essentially reprimanding the Pharisees and the chief priests, the religious leaders, for their lack of faith. This is creating a huge problem for them. He is someone they thought was sinful, but obviously God has healed him. No other person born blind has had their eyes opened before. This is a miracle, something that can only come from God. So this is posing a heavy question of, do we have a God of love or a God of wrath? Secondly, Jesus did this action. He is someone that they already kind of hate because of the miracles that he's doing. And Jesus is someone that they are already kind of counting out, saying, well, he's a sinner. He doesn't obey the Sabbath. But yet, he still did it. If God doesn't listen to sinners, and God doesn't listen to those who follow the Sabbath, well then who is this Jesus that he was able to do this? So this is creating a huge problem because they want to be in power. They don't want people turning and starting to follow this Jesus guy. And lastly, they are the religious leaders, yet they're being reprimanded by a commoner. The tables are being turned, and they feel like maybe they're losing their power. They're losing their grip on the people. They're losing their self-proclaimed stature. There's a lot of problems that are being raised by this situation. So, he is definitely a religious problem, and that's the one I would go with. What about you all? And I just completely answered that question wrong. The question is regarding the disciples, and I was talking about the Pharisees. Oops. Well, for the disciples, quite simply, as a sinner or the result of sin, they ask straightforward, hey, this is did he sin or did his parents sin? But anyway, so you got a little bit of a side lecture, a little bit of a rabbit hole. Sorry, guys. All right. What about you all? How do you think the disciples viewed the blind man? Or the Pharisees, I guess, since I answered that question. How do you think the Pharisees viewed him as well? Let's add that as part of the question too. Let me know in the comments below. Number 2, what did Jesus' reply show about how he viewed the affliction that the man had? Standard theology of the day was misguided. Man was born blind so Jesus could heal him. Suffering like this just happens. The purpose was more important than its cause. Well, definitely standard theology of the day is misguided. While all Christians believe in, hold original sin as the sin of Adam and Eve, partaking of the forbidden fruit as something that affects all humans down to the billionth, trillionth, octillionth generation. We have been born into sin and we are all sinners therefore. The theology of the day, as I mentioned, was that the sins of the parents could be punished with affliction on the children. By no means are the sins of my parents being punished for their sins through any affliction that I have, whatever it may be. But that's it. Standard theology is misguided. That's a definite fine point. Under that's sort of the umbrella answer. Definitely along with that goes that suffering like this just happens. If disabilities are not necessarily the result of sin, then that means that sometimes they just happen. Definitely, the purpose of this is more important than its cause. He may have been born blind, but now people are going to see who Jesus is. They're going to listen to him. They're going to see, wow, the Pharisees don't really have as much power as they think they do. They're going to start to understand who God really is, as taught by Jesus. The purpose that kind of comes out of this holds greater stature in the grand scheme of things than the cause of the blindness, if that makes any sense. What did Jesus' reply show about how he viewed the affliction of that the man had? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Number 3, why do you think Jesus healed the man in the manner he did? To be mysterious, to allow the man to exhibit faith, to provoke the Pharisees, something else. I would say to be mysterious. In every instance of Jesus healing, there's always some element that's different. Jesus never heals someone the same way twice, at least in the stories that we are given detail of. So him spitting on the ground and making mud with his foot and then smearing mud all over this guy's face and in his eyes and then saying, go wash. Okay. He hasn't done this, at least by no other account do we know that he has done this. So the disciples are just thinking all of a sudden Jesus is having a childish moment and he's playing with mud. But that's not the case. He's being mysterious about it. He's doing something new, different, something they've never seen before. This allows the man to definitely exhibit faith. That is a very valid answer. In terms of provoking the Pharisees, I don't know if it's so much provoking the Pharisees so much as, along with opening the eyes of the blind man, this allows the opportunity for people to open their eyes to who the Pharisees really are based on his reaction, or based on their reaction to him, rather. They're getting upset about what Jesus did because, he did this on the Sabbath, he did this, we don't know where he comes from. Everyone else can kind of see this going on. They can see the Pharisees' reaction to someone they consider a sinner and a heathen doing these miraculous things that they believe can only be done by God himself. How do they account for it? So everyone else's eyes, in the metaphorical sense, are being opened as well. I would say that is the other, is to allow everyone else to see clearly, maybe for the first time. Why do you think Jesus healed the man in this manner? Let me know in the comments. Number 4, why did some of the Pharisees take a stand against Jesus? He had violated Sabbath restrictions. He contradicted their concept of the Messiah because they were blind. They thought the healing was a fraud. They didn't like his methods. Something else. Well, part of it is whether or not they initially thought that Jesus was a fraud, or that thought came along later as justifying, well, if he is a sinner and he heals on the Sabbath, he must be a fraud. This couldn't possibly happen with a sinner. Whether or not that was an initial thought or a consequential thought is debatable. Definitely one of the most prominent points they raise is that he violated the Sabbath. That he healed, he did what would be considered work on the Sabbath. But he did the right thing on the Sabbath. And Jesus makes this argument elsewhere that basically there is never a wrong time to do the right thing. And definitely he contradicts their version of the Messiah. When the Jews imagined the Messiah, they were imagining that he was going to be this warrior king, that he was going to be this very triumphant warrior, grand physique, armor. He's going to take on the Romans. He's going to physically destroy them. They viewed the Romans as being this grand enemy, when really the enemy that Jesus came to destroy was the enslavement to sin. So Jesus wasn't exactly what they were expecting. So that could definitely play a role in it as well. And they were blind. They were blinded by tradition, definitely. They speak highly of Moses, who did miraculous things as well, but then someone else comes along who does these miraculous things regardless of it being the Sabbath or not, and poof, all of a sudden this person is a heathen. But why do you think some of the Pharisees took a stand against Jesus? Let me know in the comments below. Number 5, what sight would you tell the healed blind man to go and see as soon as possible? The mountains, a baby, a sunset, something else? I would say a sunset or a sunrise. Both of those things are very beautiful. If you're watching it rise over one of the Great Lakes, over one of the oceans, over the mountains, wherever, you get this beautiful stream of, in the morning you get some color, a little bit, not as much as the evenings. You get the sun slowly moving in. You can kind of watch the light slowly progressing along the ground. It's kind of cool looking to watch that. Or the sunset, you can see the sky with all of its pinks and purples and oranges, reds, all these different colors. It's sort of almost like a daily rainbow, as it were, and it's still very beautiful. I would say sunset or sunrise. What about you all? What sight would you tell the blind man after he's healed to go see first? Let me know in the comments. The people in the story were faced with the question, who is Jesus? Who do you say he is? A prophet, the Messiah, I'm not sure, the Son of God, my healer, the light of the world, something else. Well, a number of these. Jesus is the Messiah. He is the Son of God. He is healer, rock, my rock, my salvation. He is the light of the world. A lot of these play into just standard Christian theology. But what about you all? The people in the story were faced with this question of who Jesus is. Who do you say he is? Let me know in the comments below. Number 7. How would you rate your spiritual vision right now? 20/20? 2200? Legally blind? Nearsighted? Farsighted? A few blind spots? Something else? I would say a few blind spots. There are a few things in theology that just simply I don't necessarily understand. That's, the question of, why do bad things happen to good people? What purpose does pain, suffering, loss, what role does God play in these events? What role does it play in God's plan? What role does it play in our lives in the long run? Sort of a few blind spots in that regard, and also the whole argument over heaven and hell. While I believe that that ours is a God of love, and I believe that I'll make it into heaven, the concept of hell, somewhere that this loving Father that loves and forgives and saves, the concept of a God sending some of his children there, I don't know how to necessarily take that on. So there are certain blind spots, I guess, for me. What about you all? How would you rate your spiritual vision right now? Let me know in the comments. Number 8, what could help you improve your spiritual vision? Well, time. Definitely understanding why some of the bad things going on right now are happening. That's only going to come in time when we see kind of the fruits of these events kind of coming to fruition. Okay, yeah, we're in an environment of political turmoil and a pandemic, all of these things, but 5, 10, 20 years down the line, it may be that because of the political turmoils, whatnot like that, white supremacy in our nation will be all but wiped out. Women will be paid 100% of what men are paid. Men have just as much time off for parental leave as women have for maternal leave, or there will not be judgments made based on the color of a person's skin, but the content of their character, as Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about in his I Have a Dream speech. It's possible that 5, 10, 20 years down the line, sexism, ageism, racism, Islamophobia or xenophobia, all of these things that are sort of plaguing our nation right now, that they will be eliminated, if not very close to being eliminated, that they are hard lessons that our nation either have learned from or have almost learned from, have almost finished the curriculum, for lack of a better term. In terms of the pandemic, it might be that 5, 10, 20 years down the line, we have a government that is much more, that has better checks and balances. It might be that we have a government that listens to the people, that pays closer attention to NIAID and the WHO and all of these things, that it has the pandemic response team reinstated, that has all of these safety measures put back in place so that if another COVID comes around, we know what to do, we know how to react, we can prevent a number of people from catching it, spreading it like wildfire, essentially. So, I would say time, in short. Time could definitely help me understand my spiritual vision, and also with time comes experience, wisdom. So all of those, I really don't know for sure what will happen in terms of salvation. With time comes surety. Greater surety in my salvation, the salvation of my loved ones, the salvation of all humans. What about you all? What could help improve your spiritual vision? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, that's our last question, outside of just how can this group pray for you. So if you do have prayer requests, please feel free to leave those in the comment section down below, either on the church's Facebook page, my YouTube page, wherever. Feel free to send me an email, give me a phone call. If you're in the neighborhood, stop in, talk to me in person, shoot me a text message, whatever works for you. I am here for you all. If you have requests for subject matters, lessons, anything like that you would like to hear, please feel free to leave those in comments, emails, texts, phone calls as well. I am here for you all. I want to be as much help as I can. So that's it for this week. We will pick up with lesson 3 next Monday. So until then, stay well, stay safe,